It was a late autumn evening, and the sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lonely stretch of Route 23. Emily Ward, a recent college graduate, was driving home from a weekend visit with friends. The road was empty, and the only sound was the steady hum of her car's engine. As she rounded a bend, her headlights illuminated a figure standing by the side of the road, thumb outstretched. The hitchhiker was a young woman, her face pale and gaunt, with long dark hair hanging limply around her shoulders. She wore a thin white dress that seemed ill-suited for the chilly weather. Emily hesitated, a sense of unease creeping over her. But the woman's desperate expression tugged at her heartstrings. Against her better judgment, she pulled over and rolled down the window. "Do you need a ride?" Emily called out. The woman nodded silently, her eyes wide and pleading. She opened the passenger door and slid in without a word. As she settled into the seat, Emily noticed the woman's hands were ice-cold and trembling. "Where are you headed?" Emily asked, trying to sound friendly. The hitchhiker's voice was barely a whisper. "Just down the road. Thank you." As they drove, an uncomfortable silence filled the car. Emily tried to make conversation, but the woman only responded with brief, monosyllabic answers. She introduced herself, but the hitchhiker didn't offer her own name. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She glanced at her passenger, who stared straight ahead, her expression blank and distant. "Is everything okay?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with concern. The woman turned her head slowly, her eyes locking onto Emily's. "I just need to get home," she said, her voice hollow. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She focused on the road, determined to reach the next town as quickly as possible. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. As they approached a small, run-down gas station, Emily decided to pull over and ask for directions. The hitchhiker's presence was becoming unbearable, and she needed a moment to clear her head. "Let's stop here for a minute," Emily said, trying to sound casual. The woman didn't respond. Emily parked the car and got out, her heart pounding in her chest. She walked into the gas station, where an old man stood behind the counter, watching a small TV. "Excuse me," Emily said, her voice shaky. "Do you know how far it is to the next town?" The old man looked up, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "About 10 miles down the road. You all right, miss?" Emily nodded, glancing back at her car. "Yeah, just giving someone a ride. She's a bit quiet." The old man's expression changed to one of concern. "You picked up a hitchhiker?" Emily frowned. "Yeah, why?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "There have been stories around here about a girl who died on this road years ago. Folks say her spirit haunts it, looking for a ride home." Emily's blood ran cold. "That's ridiculous," she said, forcing a laugh. "Ghosts aren't real." The old man shrugged. "Believe what you want, but be careful." Emily returned to her car, her mind racing. The hitchhiker was still there, staring blankly ahead. Emily took a deep breath and started the engine, determined to get to the next town as quickly as possible. As they drove, Emily's anxiety grew. The woman's presence seemed to suck the warmth from the air, leaving the car feeling like a tomb. Emily glanced at her again, noticing something strange. The woman's white dress appeared to be stained with dark reddish blotches. "Are you hurt?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. The hitchhiker slowly turned her head, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "I need to go home," she repeated, her voice echoing in the confined space of the car. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She pressed down on the accelerator, her hands shaking. The road seemed to stretch endlessly before her, the darkness closing in. As they neared the town, Emily saw the outline of an old, decrepit house on the side of the road. The hitchhiker's gaze fixed on it, her expression changing to one of longing. "That's my home," the woman said, her voice filled with a strange mixture of hope and despair. Emily pulled over, her hands clammy on the steering wheel. "Are you sure? This place looks abandoned." The hitchhiker nodded. "I have to go home." Emily watched as the woman got out of the car and walked towards the house. A sense of dread filled her. She couldn't just leave without knowing the truth. She followed the woman, the cold night air biting at her skin. As they approached the house, Emily noticed it was in a state of severe disrepair. The windows were boarded up, and the paint was peeling off in large patches. The woman stopped at the front door and turned to face Emily. "Thank you for bringing me home," she said, a tear sliding down her cheek. Emily stepped back, her fear mounting. "Who are you?" The hitchhiker's form began to waver, her edges blurring. "I died here. I just wanted to go home." With those words she vanished, leaving Emily standing alone in the darkness. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She had been driving a ghost. Shaken and terrified, Emily stumbled back to her car and drove to the nearest police station. She recounted her experience to the skeptical officers, who nevertheless agreed to investigate the old house. The next day, Emily received a call from the police. They had found evidence that a young woman named Abigail Harper had lived in the house years ago. She had gone missing under mysterious circumstances, and her body was never found. The stains on her dress, Emily realized, were blood. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She knew she had encountered something beyond the realm of the living. The memory of Abigail's haunted eyes stayed with her, a constant reminder of the encounter on the dark, lonely road. From that night on, Emily avoided Route 23, never forgetting the silent passenger she had once picked up. And every year, on the anniversary of Abigail's disappearance, she lit a candle in her memory, hoping to bring peace to the restless spirit she had helped, if only for a brief moment. But deep down, Emily knew that some ghosts could never truly rest, forever bound to the roads they wandered, searching for the home they had lost.